He left me on a dirt road after the funeral. By nightfall, I had a lawyer, a plan, and the map I should have drawn years ago. I watched the sedan vanish. I stood on the shoulder. Heat pressed through my navy dress. The dust tasted like grit and honeysuckle. My husband had been lowered into the ground that morning. My son had offered a ride, then left me beside the road as if I were a task already checked off. The gesture looked tidy from a distance. Where I stood, it was a sharper thing. He thought the road would end there. It didn't. I did what I have always done when the room goes small. I breathed and took inventory. My purse held a wallet, a pen that still had weight, 2 tissues, a key to a house that would not be mine by the end of the week, and a thin notebook with a grocery list on the first page. I added a line under milk and tea. Call Margaret. The letters came out steady. That steadiness surprised me and did not surprise me at all. The walk helped. Heels were wrong for gravel, but my feet found rhythm. Each click was a sentence. I let the day widen enough to hold more than loss. I remembered the early years. Our company fit into a box of tools and a ledger book. I paid invoices on a card table. Supper cooled while I worked. I learned how clients trusted us. They trusted the person who remembered their kid's school, who noticed their porch sagging after a wet spring. None of that lived on the letterhead, but it kept the lights on when money turned thin. 3 weeks before the funeral, machines whispered in the hospital. My husband asked for a briefcase. Papers slid out like cold fish, transfers, shell names, backdated lines. My name lived on them in a slant I did not recognize. The apology he offered made a small, loose sound in his throat. He said something that cut deep. Our son thought I should have less to manage. He said arrangements were handled. He did not look at my hands, which were already making 2 piles. What is real? What only looks real? After the graveside words, the car door shut with the finality of winter. He told me what was best in the same efficient tone he used in staff meetings. He waved papers I had never signed. He didn't imagine I kept originals of things he never noticed. He did not imagine I knew where the earliest filings slept, the ones we made when the company was only sweat and a borrowed drill. I reached the gas station. It sat at town's edge. Lemon soap cut through dust. I drank water until my mouth belonged to me again. The payphone's dial tone sounded like a held breath. I pressed the numbers that would open a door I should have opened years earlier. Margaret answered. Her voice was warm, but I heard steel under the warmth. I trusted that voice. I asked for help and silence. She agreed to both because she knew me when I was good at leaving nothing half done. I walked home by a longer route so my mind could sort. I made a list of rooms where my name should live and rooms where it never should have been removed. Bank. County office, storage locker, the file box on the 3rd shelf in the hall. I added the chipped blue mug from long ago because I remembered the kind of person who drank from it and the kind of person I wanted to be again. They scrubbed the ledger. I answered with originals, stamps, and dates that don't blink. Morning light found me at the kitchen table. Everything was cleared away. Just a lamp, a stapler, a stack of folders, paper clips threw small moons onto wood. Later that day, Margaret spread the documents across her dark desk. The men's documents. Dates stumbled, terms tilted, signatures faltered at the same curve. She pushed her glasses up and tapped the margin. We did not raise our voices. The work did not ask for volume. It asked for care. Then I set down the envelope I had kept for 15 years. Inside were the first filings, the honest ones from when we were young and too tired to lie. My name beside his as co-founder and principal owner. My money had bought the first truck and half the second. He assumed time would wash that away the way water smooths a stone. He assumed I threw old papers out the way I threw old shopping lists away. He assumed wrong. We moved with patience. 6 weeks of it. I rented a small place with thin walls and a window over a parking lot. Let people think I was downsizing to something manageable for a widow. On Tuesdays, I carried a scarf, a notebook, and a pen that did not smudge to Margaret's office. dates stamped down like metronome ticks, certified letters left our hands and landed with honest weight. Nights belonged to the table again. I labeled folders with even letters and sorted receipts by the clean satisfaction of their edges. I built a timeline on butcher paper and taped it to a wall. We circled hours where a claim would require a body to be in 2 rooms at once. We highlighted the days that bent physics. Truth grew in that slow room, heavy and patient, like bread rising under a towel. A good story carries itself across a room and sets itself down where it should. No pleas, only proof, names, dates, money trails, stacked where a lie can't breathe. 6 weeks gave us a clean chain, the original filings with my name, money trails from my checkbook, a timeline no one could bend, no drama, just dates, signatures, and receipts. Now the room would learn what paper already knew. By November, the courthouse felt familiar, like a station where everyone knew where to stand. I wore the navy dress and carried the black purse. My son arrived late with his wife, both of them arranged to look unbothered. Winter light slid along the judge's glasses. It pooled at the edge of her notes. Margaret spoke the way she always reads, careful, exact, no hurry. The air filled with the right names in the right order, the early filings, the seed money traced back to my checkbook, the tax boxes marked in those first thin years when we did not yet know the cost of growth. Paper tells the truth when it is honest. When it lies, it crinkles. Pages turned, dates aligned, the room adjusted to the weight of facts. My son's face went pale in the way it used to when a truth finally cornered him in childhood. He was not a storybook villain. He was a man who had chosen a shortcut because power teaches impatience. The ruling returned what had been taken. The house came back like a tide you can set your watch by. The company returned to its real owner. Fines followed. Investigations gathered like weather behind a hill. I allowed one mercy. I let him keep the small cottage on Elm Street, the one they had picked for me, the life they planned on my behalf. Let them live with their own choice. Let them learn that mercy, too, has a ledger. Forgiveness could wait. Bookkeeping could not. Silence wasn't weakness. It was audit, and every line balanced. 3 years moved by with the clean pace of a tide chart. I spoke to my son once on a birthday. He said he wanted to mend things. Wanting is not work. I kept the company steady. Clients stayed because we showed up on time, put safety first, and wrote things down. Growth came like a season you can trust. Not flashy, not slow, just there when you open the blinds in the morning. I painted the house. I took down shelves that never held a single book and patched the holes they left. I planted a hedge and watched it thicken in patient inches. Morning light crossed the stair wall with faithful geometry. Sparrows stitched the air with quick, neat arcs. My life was not glamorous. It was mine. News broke one afternoon while I reviewed a quiet stack of invoices. A municipal project failed at the company my son started after the ruling. Corners were cut, inspections forged, workers hurt. Cameras showed broken beams and flashing lights. Numbers scrolled. Words like negligence and fraud arrived in the crawl. He was taken into custody. I put my pen down and let the room settle. It did. I did. Headlines love noise. I preferred receipts. Calls came. Margaret first. Direct, kind, efficient. Then his wife. Panic running ahead of sense. Fear about lawyers and reporters. And a child who did not ask to carry any of it. I said nothing that could be rehearsed or replayed. Silence did its job better than I ever could. When the house was quiet again, I made tea and wrote a name at the top of a fresh page. Mercy costs something. Today, the invoice didn't have my name. The idea for the page had waited for years. I had seen a mother at a hospital doorway once, face set in that exact blend of fear and grit that used to look back at me from my own mirror. A doctor spoke slowly. The boy listened with hands jammed into his sleeves. I kept thinking about women who hold up roofs with unnamed tasks and men who do not notice until the roof groans. I kept thinking about families trying to stay human in narrow rooms. I met Margaret again and changed my will. Everything I owned would go to a foundation that listened more than it spoke. The company, the house, the investments I earned by being steady while others chased shortcuts. I set a small trust for my granddaughter's education because a child should not fund her future with her parents' mistakes. I didn't feel triumph as I signed. I felt clean, the way a ledger feels at the end of a balanced day. If legacy means anything, let it meet a utility bill. I don't believe in noble suffering anymore. I believe in attention. I believe in clean books and signed receipts and the way a garden answers water. I believe kindness without boundaries is not kindness at all. My son once tried to measure my worth in square feet and asset lists and the tone of his voice. He forgot simple things. He forgot that I keep records. He forgot that I walk well on long roads. I kept the name I had carried through 30 years of small storms and gave that name to the foundation. It would outlast the storms. I wrote a simple mission: help working families stay afloat when illness, grief, or sudden change pulls at them. No plaques, no speeches, small grants, clean books, a phone someone answers, each quarter, an audit. A school counselor helped me list quiet needs. People forget. A bus card, a motel bed near a clinic, a lock, steel-toed boots, fuel, childcare for a single shift, a stethoscope, a winter coat that actually fits. The first grants went out on a wet Tuesday. Paper smelled like ink and cardboard. A woman used a small sum to replace a broken water heater so her mother could bathe without fear. A man bought steel-toed boots and took a safer job. A teen stayed near a hospital for a week that mattered. None of it made a headline. All of it made sense. I walked the garden path that evening and laid my palm on the rail my husband once sanded. The wood held warmth. The grain read like a map back to myself. I thanked the board for lasting and my legs for the day they carried me farther than pride ever did. The hedge lifted a new green line against the fence. I thought about how seasons keep their slow promises even when people do not. I prepared a small folder for my nightstand labeled, "When It's Time." Inside, I placed letters with plain directions: the will, the foundation plan, the keys to the cabinets where the clean books live. I wrote where the spare set is and who to call first. I added one page that explained nothing and everything, a list of values with room to add more, because values should breathe. On the morning I signed the last document, a thin sun turned the kitchen into a quiet lake of light. I brewed tea and let the steam touch my face. I looked over the last ledger and found the numbers where they should be. I set my pen down and felt the table accept the weight. I thought of the road where I was left and the map I made walking away from it, street by street, name by name, proof by proof. At the door, I paused long enough to hear my own breath and the soft tick of a wall clock. I had one more line to write that day, a line that would close the book with the exact pressure it deserved. I did not owe anyone the theater of anger or the costume of forgiveness. I owed the truth its own clean shape. I opened the folder and placed a final note where no one could miss it. I left him nothing but the lesson he earned. The company, the house, and the garden go to the foundation that keeps other families standing. If clean books and steady hands won't teach him, what will?